All right, Kay, I brought what I promised you. This is a spike from a mullein plant. Lots of mullein seed on there. We can put wherever you want to have some mullein growing.
Okay.
And these are lamb's quarter seeds, which
Let's
we'll
see.
distribute in a garden bed somewhere.
Oh, they're just little.
Yeah, they're
Okay.
well. You can see the little black seeds.
Oh, tiny.
Little tiny
Okay.
seeds. Yeah.
Okay.
What I do with lamb's quarters is I actually walk and put them on all my garden beds. I save a few. I let a few of these plants grow big and make seed every year. And about this time of year, I go around and I spread that seed everywhere, because the way I see it is if you're going to expose some soil in the spring and maybe till it up and get ready to plant beans or corn or whatever, you're going to have weeds come up. Well, why not have them be lamb's quarters, which is edible, and maybe you can let them get 4 inches tall or so and harvest a bunch of them and eat them as fresh greens or cooked greens, either way, and then till them under and plant your crop that you were going to plant there. So it's like you're going to have weeds come up anyway. They might as well be a weed you can eat.
Right.
And if you plant these thickly, they kind of take over, and not many other weeds will come up. You'll have just pure lamb's quarters.
Okay, so I have a question. So I've got a lot of hay, and I was planning on lining everything with hay. So how do I need to sit and separate all that, or just?
I just walk around. I just strip them off the branches and just spread it as I walk.
Well, we can't do that
scatter.
now yet because I haven't finished the garden, right?
Well,
Or yes.
I mean, like, what about your side garden right here?
Yeah. Well,
You're
let's go
gonna
see.
in the spring you'll be tilling there and everything, right?
Right.
And even if you put it on the hay,
gonna
the
rain
hay's
in.
going to rot down, and you're going to be, once you have lamb's quarters in the soil, it's like if you rototill, some of the seeds will end up in that zone where they're just right for sprouting, and you'll get some lamb's quarters. A lot of them will remain down deep, and they could stay there 5 years, 10 years, and they finally get brought up to that zone, and then they will sprout. So,
Okay.
I do it every year, and I always have lots of lamb's quarters.
Okay. And then you don't have any problems from doing that.
No, they pull up easily, or rototill easily if you want to get rid of them. And like I said, I always pick 1 or 2 or several and let them grow full size, so you get up with seed every year.
Of the lamb's quarters or the mullein? Okay.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, lamb's quarters is the wild cousin from which quinoa is derived.
Okay.
And if you grow quinoa, it looks just like lamb's quarters.
It does. I thought I was growing quinoa. I mean, I planted quinoa seed in California. And then later somebody said it was lamb's quarters. And I'm
No.
going, well, but how could it be? I actually planted quinoa seed.
Yeah, and I'm sure it was, but they look
Okay.
that much alike.
Okay.
So, look at that. Here, I'll just get them in my hand. There's your lamb's quarter seed.
Okay, great.
So, it's been falling off since I've been carrying this around.
Okay,
All right.
let's do it.
Why don't we'll set the bucket down here and come back to it,
Okay,
and we'll take this mullein and go over and do it first.
okay.
Look at that.
Oh my, it's
Pretty
like
good one for
that looks like a
starters.
teddy bear.
I think you found the best way to grow potatoes.
Wow.
That's awesome. Yeah, here's some more. You need to get a shovel in here. I mean, they might be down deep even. I don't know.
I didn't plant anything deep. It was
Yeah,
just
but they
kind of ready.
Yeah, look, okay, you got some great stuff here.
Wow.
Another good one.
My goodness,
Yeah.
I've never grown a potato that big.
I know, that's nice.
Wow.
You should do some
Yeah,
exploring here.
I will.
That's
will.
awesome.
That's a meal. Oh my gosh, look. There's another Seminole.
Oh, green one, yeah.
I think that's a
Yeah,
Seminole.
pretty cool.
That's gonna be Thanksgiving before that's ready.
You can just go like along here and throw these mullein seeds. They'll just pop up in here. Over
Yeah.
at the edge of the woods.
I thought you meant over there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Well,
Now, we're walking through poison ivy.
well, let's walk on the plastic.
Okay.
And I'm going to do this. Or do you want to do it?
No, you do it so I can
just
film
gonna
it.
Kind of rough it up. And
Let me see what they look like so I see.
I'm going to find an actual seed. Hey.
Is it that round thing?
Yeah, I think it was.
It's right there.
Yeah, there. That's a seed. Yeah. Where'd that go?
It disintegrated.
Yeah, look. There's one. Right. Oh, hey, you know what?
What
Some of these might have been eaten up by stuff.
Oh.
I hope not. There's got to be some good ones in there. Got the whole spike. Let's just do it and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, okay.
And if you don't get any to come up, I'll have some come up next spring. We can just dig one up.
Yeah, okay.
And transplant.
That sounds good. I'm actually not too keen about the kitties going over this far, but
About what? Cats?
yeah, they'll follow us, so
Yeah,
it's
we're just gonna walk around the edge.
okay.
See, this is a good place. If they come up in here, you won't be in your way or anything. And they get a lot of sun right here. It's a good spot.
That's true.
So I'm doing a lot right in there.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do a few more down this way. All right, there's the mowing zone.
All right.
Somewhere up there on there.
Okie doke.
Hopefully you'll get some.
Yeah. I've seen those before, and I was worried about it.
I don't see anything. I don't see any ants.
I mean, what else could it be, though? You know.
Yeah. I just don't know why they're not coming up. Oh, in there.
There's another one.
Yep. Don't see any activity. Sorry to ruin your house, guys. I'm just trying to figure out what you are. Let's see. Let's really tear one open. Huh. That's too big a hole. It might not be an ant. I don't know what's doing that.
Well, I just saw a big old daddy longleg walking that way.
I'll lay that there for you.
Just for the heck of it. Dig right in here, Darrell.
Oh, you want to see some more? Hey,
Yeah.
don't leave them out here. Yeah, come
Yeah,
get them.
let's grab those.
Let's see, what do you got? Is that a potato? Is that potato vine right there? Yeah. Okay, these look like, wait, this is russet, looks like they're different.
Yeah, I had different ones.
Yeah, you want to dig down here. They're going down pretty far.
Okay.
So I'd do some digging in these spots.
I didn't think they would go down because it was kind of hard packed,
Yeah,
you know.
I'd say you're going to have a whole lot of potatoes, Kay.
All right.
That's great. That's a good way to grow them, really.
Yeah.
That's a real
Well,
good
once we dump those seeds, we'll come and put the potatoes in there, and then I got something to carry it.
Okay.
Yeah, I hope this finishes out. This is going to be my pumpkin, my one and only pumpkin for Thanksgiving.
Okay. So would you say that you're probably going to rototill this in the spring?
I
plant
guess.
So
I guess.
I'm thinking let's just do your lamb's quarters concentrated
in
right
the
in
bean
this
area?
corner.
Okay.
Then you'll remember where it is, and you know
Okay.
you can till it and be on the lookout for it because you're not familiar with it. When it starts coming up, you won't necessarily recognize that it's lamb's quarters.
Right.
Of course, at that time of year, I can tell you, or you can come to my house and I'll point it out, or
Yeah.
you know.
Well, if
whatever.
it looks like quinoa, I know what it looks like.
Yeah, it has a. Even when they're real young, there's like a. How would I describe it? It's like a crystally white silver coating on, and you can rub it off even.
Oh, okay.
And so you know it has an odd look to it that way.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to start just going with this. Shake. Do this. We're just getting them everywhere. They will come up all over the place, but we got a lot in the bottom of that bucket, so
Okay.
we'll spread them around too. And I'll even just throw that in there for you.
Okay.
And then,
Do you think I should chop and drop all this stuff once I take the beans out?
sure.
Because it's, you know, obviously there was a lot of pest damage, and
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't know if that should come out and get burned or just leave it in there.
Well, I wouldn't worry about that so much. I would drop it all, and if you can get some manure, cover it with manure, and then put a thin layer of hay on top of that, and then you're good. You put it to bed for the winter.
When we go over and look at the hay, I want to ask you. Yeah, the okra's done. And I'm done. I'm tired of it. So.
Yeah, that's too bad. We're late. Mom loves okra, and I said, oh, maybe sometime we'll get some from Kaye, but
Well,
we got here too late.
Well, no, there's a few on there that you could take.
Really?
Fresh, sure.
That are still kind of small and.
Yeah.
She likes them small. She doesn't like big ones. She
No, I
says
know.
they're no good when they get big.
I know, but like this one's good.
Yeah.
But we need to clip it.
She has never eaten them raw either. She was shocked you were eating them raw.
Really? See, they just don't come off easily. That's a good one, actually.
Okay.
Have her try that raw.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to go get clippers and us come back and harvest some stuff?
Sure.
Okay.
You're going to be so glad you have that this winter. And especially this winter, the way they're talking, you may actually need it.
Oh, I have a feeling I will. And Darrell was the first person that said I had to have a whole house backup generator, and I'm glad I got it.
Yeah, I'd wait till these turn back like this. And see, they're still kind of damp. Well, you could take them in and they dry real nice. But I'd wait till they lose all this, you know, they need to look kind of brown.
Yeah, okay.
And then just get them out of the pods and dry them real good and you're all set.
This one's brown. Can you open that and just see what it looks like inside?
Oh, ain't they gorgeous? Just look at those beans.
Did you just drop one?
Yeah, it fell down. I see it though. I can get it.
Okay.
They are pretty looking. Wow, I like that.
Aren't they pretty? Oh my goodness.
Look at
Oh,
that.
you know what?
What?
I know what those are.
What?
I got those from the National Heirloom Expo in 2017. And I don't remember the name, but I have it inside.
Very
and
cool
I
looking.
couldn't remember what I planted. But aren't they pretty?
Mhm.
Oh, wow.
Very
yeah.
nice.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, we'll have to do some bean trading. I'm just puzzled with this because the yellow one over there doesn't have the same trouble at all.
I
I
know.
was thinking it was because it's under this dense foliage and it never gets sunshine on it, that maybe it stayed wet through the summer. I don't really know why it got so ugly looking. And look at the birds. That was a heart shape cut out. The birds have chipped away at that. Or a squirrel. There's what it was.
It's a squirrel.
And now the squirrel decided he wanted a bigger hole. Okay, wonderful. Well, I mean, this feels pretty dry right now, but I think if you brought it in, let it get real dry, you know, a little bit more dry maybe. And, you know, you could probably wash a lot of that off, get it dried, and a new coat of paint. It's still good to go. I mean, you can still use it even though it doesn't have the nice heart shape anymore.
Well, I can turn the heart to the... But can you just check the other one? Check inside it.
Yeah.
I felt inside one of the other ones, and the seeds all felt kind of gross inside.
Yeah, oh yeah, they're all wet and stuck together. That's all just the hulls. That's why the birds aren't, see, that's just what they left over.
Let's see.
There's no seeds in there, that's just the hulls.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, you need to clean all that out.
Okay.
It's okay though, it's dry, it's solid, there's nothing wrong with it.
All right, but are you saying, should I take them all down and clean them?
Let's have it. Yeah, I think this would, all right, let's check. I think this will wash off pretty easy. Yeah, you get
Did
it
you
wet.
just lick your finger?
Yeah, I licked my finger, the one that was cleanest looking.
Oh. I thought you were tasting the mold.
No. I'm trying to rub it off and get it wet.
Mold can be poisonous, you know.
Sure, well I didn't lick the mold.
Well, I couldn't tell.
I looked at my hands, I had some darkness, but I said, well, that finger's kind of clean, so I licked that one.
Well, I'm going to actually have you take that red one down for me, and then
I can reach.
we'll leave it in the front. Will it lift off?
No, I need a step stool to get up there and undo the wire.
Oh, is it twisted? All right.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go get you some harvest. But this is really cute. Do you think this will ever get used?
Well, you know, it's funny. Denise had her birdhouses this year. She had a nest in almost every birdhouse, and she had like maybe 5 birdhouses,
Wow.
5 or 6. I have 5 or 6 birdhouses around this year. I didn't see a single bird use one this year,
Oh, wow.
but they have in other years.
Huh. Maybe it just depends on where it is, you know,
Maybe.
as to whether they'll be happy. There's a lot of oh my goodness. There's probably 20 or 30 eggplant over there. Just take as many as you want.
Well, I don't need a whole lot.
You should take one of these crispy melons too. I couldn't think of the name of it in the video, but
Oh, yeah. They're ready to eat?
well, the ones that don't have any green on them.
Oops, that one rotten.
Yeah, just throw, yeah.
That's a little green.
What about a bigger one over there?
Oops, let me smell that. Nope, can't smell much. I don't know. What, you're just supposed to...
It's more like a pear. You cut it open and eat it like a melon, but it,
Oh, okay.
it tastes more like a pear.
Cool. Okay.
But take a lot of eggplant.
Take a lot of it.
Yeah, I see one I'm going to keep for myself, though.
Oh, yeah? Where's that?
It's over there. But
Okay.
there's a whole bunch of these Chinese. Do you have a way that you like to eat the Chinese?
I've never had them.
Really?
No, I never saw this kind of eggplant.
Oh, I
I'm
used
the
to
Black
have.
Beauty. I grew the Black Beauty. When I first started gardening, I planted that and it did wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried many years after that, and I could never get eggplant. They got it bug eaten too bad all the time.
Oh.
And so I was surprised when I see what you had over here. It's like, oh, you're really
Well, who
producing.
knows what'll happen by next year, you know?
Right?
Mm-hmm.
You got a bunch of beans here.
I know, but I think I have to wait now until they're, you know, dried, don't I?
If you want to save them for seed, at the stage they're at right now, if you had the patience to open them up and pull the beans out, you could eat them fresh.
Oh.
I wouldn't eat the pods; they're probably getting tough by now.
Oh, okay.
But the beans inside are still green. I mean, if you know, they look like they.
Okay.
Yeah, you could go through there and just open the pods and.
Okay, I'll
have a
do
nice
that in the
little-
morning.
Right.
So come get some okra for your mom.
All right. I
Okay.
think that's enough.
Okay. I used to eat baked eggplant, the Chinese eggplant in a Chinese, it was a Chinese vegetarian restaurant in Manhattan. There were 3 of them I loved. What do you think this is? Is this just grass coming through the hay? What is this?
Yeah, that's just grass. You see that? You know, a lot of people will do that. They'll mulch, and they put the mulch on rather thin, and then things sprout. And then, oh no, we don't want to use hay because it sprouts. Well, just throw some more on top of it.
Well, I think
Smother
I'm
it
going to
out.
cut I think I'm going to wait until the okra seeds or pods are dry.
Mm-hmm.
Then cut all the okra down, just drop it, chop and drop it, and then put the hay on top of it, right? Is that good?
Yeah, that's fine. And you know, if you can get manure, I'd put manure down and then the hay on top of that.
Oh, right, yeah.
But you know, this is not a problem here, and you just cover it up with something. You know, cover some hay or some manure or whatever. It's done.
Okay,
Nothing to worry about.
all right.
All right. Mom's got a little okra.
Is that enough?
Well, she's the only one that's going to eat it.
I know, but here's another good one.
I'm just
Right
getting the smallest ones.
I know, there's another good small one right there.
All right. What are these things?
Those, I don't understand what happened to those because
Oh, is that eggplant too?
it is eggplant,
Oh,
but it's not the color it's supposed to be.
yeah.
I'm going to save the seeds on all the big ones.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I wouldn't mind. Well, I got seed on those long ones. I'll try to keep some of those seeds.
Oh, yeah. That does look good from a distance, doesn't it?
But you know, the first year I learned about doing that is when I lived in that community and we had a lot of kids. And so I built rooms with a doorway. I left a little doorway so they could go in, and you know, we'd lay a tarp across the top sometimes, and so they had a fort to play in and stuff.
Wonderful. I used to love that sort of thing when I was a child. I would put quilts over the clothesline, make myself a little fort.
Yeah.
I almost think I should do one this way and close it in.
Yeah, sure.
But you know, if
got the room.
if some big predator came, they would just jump over the top of it.
But see, you could that way you get double use of one of your towers. Now you come off this way, you only have to build one tower.
Oh,
So it is cool to do that.
I am going to do that. I am going to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to do that.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
All right, this is a story about it's called Encounters with Bees. This is a 100% true story. These all actually happened to me and some friends of mine. And I wrote this in 2013. So I'll go ahead and read it to you. I hope you enjoy it. I've always found bees to be very fascinating. As a toddler, I would sit transfixed, gazing at the hollyhocks that grew at the edge of the back porch, where a steady parade of honeybees and big black and yellow bumblebees would show up all day long. As a 7 or 8-year-old, I frequently busied myself at the hollyhocks and at the clover blossoms proliferating in our lawn, with jar in hand. It was easy to capture honeybees between the jar and the lid, in which I had punctured some breathing holes, and quickly possess a container with 20 or 30 bees inside. Vigorous shaking of this collection produced an astoundingly loud and frightful sound from the angered bees. This was a priceless treasure to a young mischievous boy who, with such a device at his disposal, could terrify and chase the neighborhood girls and derive great satisfaction and hilarity. I would occasionally get stung in this endeavor, but considered it a small price to pay for all the guaranteed amusement. Obviously, it wasn't so great for the poor bees, but then 8-year-old boys aren't usually too concerned with much more than themselves. And besides, a whole bevy of screaming girls, arms and pigtails flailing in the air, was just more than I could resist. Once all potential victims had left the area, I would carefully and quickly released the bees, executing an impressively fleet-footed retreat myself. I remember at about age 12, my first exposure to a piece of honey-laden comb. What a novel and delectable treat that was. The beeswax could be chewed like gum for a long time, steadfastly delivering the sweet honey flavor which promoted a respectful contemplation of the admirable accomplishments of those clever little creatures. With amazement, in high school, I learned about the complexity of the honeybee's organization as a matriarchal society, with a queen and an army of female workers, which meant that I had been using a bunch of girls to terrorize a bunch of girls, and the precarious existence of males called drones that, mirroring their human counterparts, mostly just hang out at home eating and waiting for a chance at romance with a perpetually busy female. And that, fortunately not like their human counterpart, obligingly perish immediately upon fulfilling their function. They are always at risk of being expelled from the hive if food supplies should run short, and when winter approaches, are harassed and banished to starve and die. Equally incredible were the details I learned about the waggle dance the worker bees would perform to communicate the location of worthwhile places to gather nectar and pollen, and the various roles worker bees would fulfill throughout their life, guarding the hive entrance, feeding the larvae, building the comb, foraging in the field, and the ultimate sacrifice every worker was willing to make should it become necessary for her to deliver a sting in defense of the hive. It seems like humanity could learn a few useful things from bees, though I hope the thing about the males never catches on. Recent advances in the genetics labs are making the human male increasingly non-essential, at least for reproductive purposes. Who knows what the women could decide someday? It might be prudent to discourage women from learning about bees. As an adult, I met and became friends with several beekeepers. One day, one of them asked me if I'd help him bottle up some honey. It didn't involve any interaction with bees, as he had already removed the frames filled with honey from the hives. He had a hand-cranked extractor, which looked like a stainless steel 55-gallon drum with a crank on the lid. With an electrically heated knife, he carefully sliced the caps of the wax that sealed the honey in the individual cells, and the honey began to ooze out. He quickly affixed 2 frames at a time inside the extractor. With the lid back on, one could operate the crank, and the frames rotated around and around inside. Centrifugal force pushed the honey out of the cells, and it collected at the bottom of the barrel, where a spigot allowed one to fill jars. I found it all pretty interesting and delicious. I observed another friend's beekeeping hobby quickly turn into a full-time business. David built all his own hives, several hundred of them. He built a honey house, a building for extracting, bottling, and labeling his product. He bought a large flatbed truck to transport his hives to various farmers' fields and orchards, and to deliver cases of jars of honey to the many stores that sold it. He called it Cat Hollow Honey, since his farm was located in a place called Cat Hollow. The label had a picture of a beehive with a black cat sitting on top, its tail dangling down in front, a few bees flying about, and a vivid blue sky background. I'm pretty sure Cat Hollow got its name from a different kind of cat, though. I visited him once, and at some hives he kept near his house, as I stood some distance away, he showed me what exactly it is that beekeepers do. His bee suit was pure white, cooler to work in under the hot sun, and a color bees don't dislike. It may sound odd that the bees would somehow dictate the color of clothing to be worn, but the reality is that the bees make all the rules, and the beekeepers must abide by them. His white hat had netting around, hanging down to protect his face and neck. He wore coarse work gloves. With duct tape, he sealed the openings at his ankles and wrists. He had a small metal can with a bellows attached on the side and a spout protruding from the top, a smoker, that he filled with dry pine needles. He set them afire and closed the lid. He took the top off a hive, and by squeezing the bellows, propelled smoke down into the hive. This made the bees retreat deeper into the hive and had a calming effect on them. They did not come streaming out to investigate what had just happened to the hive lid that was letting daylight flood their home, as I was anticipating. He lifted individual frames from the rack to observe how full of honey they were. There were still a few bees on the frames, but they were very subdued by the smoke, and just slowly walked around. This was typically how his dealings with bees went, quite uneventful. But one time, when he hired me to help him, my first time to wear a bee suit, although that was not originally part of the plan, uneventful would not be the proper descriptive word to use. I agreed to assist him with a big job in exchange for 10 gallons of honey, which before I experienced what was to come, seemed like a great deal to me. Afterwards, I don't think 100 gallons would have tempted me. It sounded simple enough. He had 40 hives set up in a cotton field over near Memphis, about a 3-hour drive, and needed help loading them onto his truck and then unloading them at his farm. He assured me that I wouldn't even see a bee or need any protective clothing, as we would do our work at night, and the bees would be sealed inside the hive with the entrance-exit taped shut. It's not as odd as it might at first sound that David had his hives situated so far from his home. When beekeeping is just a hobby, one keeps a few hives near the house and lets the bees fly to various flowers as they come into bloom throughout the season, some close by, some far away. It can take several months to fill a hive with honey. When beekeeping is a business, hundreds of hives might be moved to different locations where they are surrounded by lots of nearby flowers. These hives can be filled with honey in a few weeks. They are transported home, the honey is extracted, and they are quickly moved to another choice location. In the early spring, they might be placed in the middle of an orchard. When the trees are finished flowering, they might be positioned in a large field full of clover, and after that, be put to work on a planting of alfalfa. As the season draws to a close, the harvesting of honey can cease for the year, or an especially enterprising beekeeper might haul his hives all the way to Florida and make some orange blossom honey. Farmers who depend on pollination by bees for fruit production, for example, will pay beekeepers to set hives up in their area, giving the beekeeper an instant paycheck and a load of honey to be sold later. It was 3 p.m. on a hot August afternoon as the big flatbed truck roared out of Cat Hollow. We timed our journey to get us to the cotton field a bit before sunset. We couldn't really do anything until dusk. That's when the bees returned to their hives for the night. So on the way, we stopped at a restaurant and had a nice big meal. We needed to build up our energy reserves for the huge job ahead. We arrived with plenty of time to spare, and as we stood surveying the scene, David explained exactly what we would be doing. The hives were all lined up along the edge of the cotton field, where they could be partially shaded from noontime sun beneath some tall trees bordering the fence row. Each one sat upon a few bricks to keep it up off the ground, somewhat, and was stacked high with boxes of frames called supers, making it about chest or shoulder high. As soon as it was dark enough that we were sure all the bees had settled in for the night, we would duct tape all of the entrance slots closed and then begin loading the hives onto the truck one at a time with the help of a small dolly or hand truck. There was no need for bee suits, and we quickly had all of the entrances sealed off. Getting them onto the truck, however, went much slower. The hives were heavy, fully loaded with honey, and the soil was rather sandy, which let the dolly wheels dig in. The day's heat and humidity hadn't had much time to dissipate. We struggled and pulled and wrestled each hive to the truck, which was equipped with a powered lift that raised the hive to bed level. We were sweaty and dirty and totally exhausted as we finally drove away from that cotton field a few hours later. I was hoping the long drive home would allow my body to recuperate and revive my strength for the second half of the job awaiting us. It was approaching 2 a.m. before we at long last arrived back at Cat Hollow. Both of us were barely awake after our journey and were quite sure we didn't really have it in us to immediately jump up and unload 40 hives. Although that was what we had planned to do. David suggested I make use of his couch and that we try to get 3 or 4 hours of sleep. He said everything would be fine as long as we got all the hives unloaded and the tape off the entrances before the sun started hitting the hives. Otherwise, the hives would quickly heat up and bees would begin to die. Sounded good to me. I fell asleep in an instant. The next thing I knew, I heard David moaning, "Oh no! Oh no! We overslept!" I will never forget the sight that I beheld when I looked out that window at 8:30 on a bright sunny day. I could barely see the big flatbed truck loaded with 40 hives through the cloud of thousands of angry bees flying rapid circles about it. Obviously, lots of bees had figured out how to chew through duct tape. Although the job I signed up for did not include any encounters with bees, I was now facing the encounter of a lifetime. As I tried to assimilate the horrific scene before me, I couldn't stop the terrifying film loop playing in my mind. I must depart temporarily from this narrative of the Cat Hollow calamity and relate the story of another beekeeping friend of mine so that my greatly enhanced anxiety can be fully appreciated. My friend Steve enjoyed beekeeping as a hobby, with 3 hives in his yard near the garden. He and his bees had been producing honey together for several years. During this time, as the bees became familiar with the routine maintenance procedures and repeatedly demonstrated their calm nature, Steve, like many beekeepers, rarely bothered to use his bee suit. He often didn't even employ the smoker. I'm not sure if he was using the smoker during the event I'm about to describe, but the way things transpired, it wouldn't really have been of much use. It was a warm, late summer day, and Steve was at home alone. The sky was heavily overcast, which should have diverted his intentions toward anything besides working with the hive. One of the first lessons beekeepers learn is that on overcast days and just ahead of approaching storms, bees tend to be cranky and aggressive, and it's best not to bother them. I don't know if Steve just didn't take notice of the sky or if he simply had come to expect peaceful behavior from his bees. But he decided that this was the time to check how well the frames were filling with honey, and he saw no need to put on a hot, stuffy bee suit. He approached the first hive with his hive tool, a pry bar needed to loosen the lid of the hive as it gets stuck on there with propolis, a bee glue of sorts. As soon as he removed the lid, an enraged horde of bees erupted and began to attack him. They immediately covered his body and began to sting. With the protection of a bee suit and the use of a smoker, he could easily have gained control of the situation. Instead, he was now in grave danger. With bees on him and all around him, and receiving many stings, he ran for the house, not knowing yet what exactly he was going to do. He thought about running around the house to get to the hose and possibly fend the bees off with water. But he was getting stung so much, that seemed like too far to go. Instead, standing at the doorway to the screened-in front porch, he brushed off as many bees as he could and rushed inside and slammed the door shut. At least most of the cloud circling about was now defeated. But there were still lots of bees on and around him. At the front door to the house, he repeated the procedure and hurried into the living room, slamming that door and separating himself from more bees. Running to the bathroom entrance, he repeated the process and closed the door behind him. There were still a surprising number of bees attacking him as he jumped into the shower and turned on the water, but at last he was able to defeat them. Since it was a warm day, and he had only been wearing shorts and a t-shirt, his arms, leg, and face had the most stings. Looking at himself in the mirror, he realized what a serious situation he was dealing with. He definitely had hundreds of stings. He ran to the phone and called his brother, who lived a couple of miles away. When his brother arrived, Steve was having some trouble breathing and was passing in and out of consciousness. Because they lived so far out in the country, rather than waiting around for an ambulance to arrive, Steve's brother helped him into the car and drove him to the hospital. It was certainly a close call, but he came out of the ordeal just fine. Unfortunately, the experience persuaded him to give up beekeeping, and he soon sold his hives. He told me later that he knew it was all his own fault, and if he had just followed the basic rules of beekeeping, nothing at all would have happened. He added that since he had done it once, he couldn't guarantee he wouldn't do something equally as stupid yet again, and so to be on the safe side, he parted with his beloved hobby and resumed being a purchaser of honey. And so, as I gazed upon the largest congregation of bees I had ever seen, I just couldn't get the picture of Steve, totally covered with stinging bees, running for his house out of my head. That I had somehow gotten myself obligated to leave the comfort and safety of the house and boldly go where no sane man should ever contemplate intruding was incomprehensible to me. David tried to reassure me and convince me it would be okay. He had a spare bee suit I could wear. I was more inclined, actually extremely inclined, to immediately drive out of Cat Hollow and never come back. But I knew that David could not unload the hives without my help, and that many hives were still sealed shut with sunlight directly on them. In my innocence or delirium, I was somehow concerned for the bees. They needed to be rescued. It was already quite hot and humid. The bee suit only made things worse. David's bee suit was very new in appearance, whereas mine had obviously seen considerable action and sported numerous holes. We taped the holes shut with duct tape and the gaps at our wrists and ankles. The sound of thousands of buzzing bees is surprisingly loud. My bees in a jar were outdone like a nuclear bomb outdoes a firecracker. We reluctantly waded into the cloud. The bees, who were certainly furious but had no particular purpose to their flight path, suddenly witnessed from their lofty vantage point two stupid lumbering creatures begin to brazenly manhandle their hives. The aimless wandering and flying about ceased immediately. Bees were pelting me with loud thuds like big fat raindrops from a summer shower. Amazingly soon, there wasn't much white bee suit material showing. I was getting covered up. So many bees were crawling onto the netting in front of my face that it was difficult to see where I was going. Fortunately, the bee suit material is thick and coarse and they can't sting through it, but they sure were trying. Sweating profusely and out of breath, we worked as quickly as we could. Then the inevitable began to happen. The ingenious little demons were finding ways to get inside the bee suit. I was now being stung in many locations. Watching cross-eyed as a bee flew in the couple-inch space between my nose and the netting was particularly unnerving. A bee crawling on the back of my neck was quite unbearable, but when one found its way to my armpit, it was absolutely intolerable. If she landed on the inside of the netting, my gloved hand was there in a flash to squeeze the life out of her. I began this mission, wanting to rescue poor helpless bees. Now I just wanted to, murder every last one of them. To make matters worse, as each hive was unloaded, David insisted on removing the taped up entrances to free the bees and help air circulate into the hive. Realized that healthy beehives in full production, as all of these were, with such large stores of honey, contain 30,000 to 50,000 bees. Inside, they were busy fanning their wings in an attempt to cool the queen, the larvae, and themselves, and most would remain at that task when the entrance was opened up. I'll wager they weren't bothering to try to cool off any drones. Regardless, many ill-humored thousands would charge out to join the irate swarm and attack the idiots who had put them in this predicament. The 3 hours it took for us to complete the task were the most terrifying and exhausting I have ever experienced. I had never sweated so much in all my life. I had never questioned my sanity more than in that moment. Taking a long shower afterward felt wonderful and gave me an opportunity to tally up the many stings I had suffered. I couldn't see them all, though I certainly felt them, and evidently had come away with less than 50. I consider myself pretty fortunate under the circumstances. Although I appreciated the extra 5 gallons of honey David compensated me with, I didn't really feel like I had come out ahead on that deal. Neither Steve's calamity nor the unfortunate situation David and I found ourselves in would ever have occurred if the people involved had strictly adhered to the code of conduct that the bees require. And in the lives of both of these beekeepers, these were extremely unusual events. Both had many years of mellow, pleasant days as caretakers of their hives, and if they had followed the proper procedures and respected the restrictions they knew well, that's all they ever would have had. My nightmarish ordeal did not diminish my fascination and admiration of bees. The tribulation I endured was probably retribution for the torment I doled out to scores of honeybee ancestors decades ago. I still consider bees to be one of the most intriguing creatures with which we share this planet. Since I am only in my youthful early 60s, I may yet get myself a few beehives. And believe me, I'll be obeying their every command. Mosquitoes, yeah. When did females bite?
I didn't know that. He just said, okay, so what happened is Joe just said there was a bug on my face, and he smacked my face. Not really. But he missed it, and he said it was, maybe it went in my throat. He said it was a mosquito. Anyway, we are done. We've had a great visit, and I hope you enjoyed part 1 where we built the firewood stack and then all of the other associated gardening associated things. There's another one, a mosquito, right? I thought they were gone.
Well, we're getting out of here.
They're leaving. Look, I'm going inside. I thought the mosquitoes were over. Last night it was so pleasant.
Huh.
Okay, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe. Bye, Darrell. Bye, Joe.
Bye-bye.
Well done on her face, yeah. Mosquito. I didn't get it. I could have slapped harder and got it.
Oh.
Didn't think he'd like that. Wait. Got him.
Oh my gosh.
Look, yeah, I got blood, you got blood. That's your blood, I guess. You can keep
I
that.
hope not.